Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to another edition of Film Fighters, coming to you from the luxurious studios of Radio Titans in Los Angeles. As always, I'm one of your co-hosts, Carl Kozlowski. I'm a film critic with Pasadena Weekly and some other outlets. And with me today is one of our other co-hosts.
I'm Joe Black. I'm Carl's best friend.
Yes, and an independent filmmaker extraordinaire. And also, Zoe Hewitt is off this week, but will be back next week with us, another critic. And,
we miss her so.
Yes, we do. So this week we're talking about it's sort of Oscar season now. And but we're not talking directly about this year's Oscars, really.
Because I haven't seen any of those movies yet. I haven't watched my screeners.
Lucky you in a lot of ways, but geez. Yeah, so, but Joe had some interesting ideas about what we could do with the Oscars. So, Joe, take it.
Well, this city goes crazy when the Oscars are happening. And what I'm starting to find is I think it's only this city that's going crazy for the Oscars anymore. Yeah. I think the prestige of the Oscars has kind of died off. You know, you look at like some of the Oscar winners of the last like 10, even 20 years. I mean, we used to have like actual like hit movies that people wanted to go see were becoming, you know, Oscar winners, like, you know, Martin Scorsese's The Departed or, you know, something like Argo. And nowadays it seems like the movies that win Best Picture only make any money whatsoever after they've won the Oscar. They're not actually movies that people want to go see. I'm not saying that that's a good or a bad thing. I just... I find that interesting, and I wonder when that shift happened.
Well, I mean, to be fair, just that's true for the most part this year. Out of the 9 nominees, I was surprised that they did have 2 movies that were really big smashes, Get Out and Dunkirk. And Get Out is a real surprise, I'd say, because of the fact it was such a populist kind of a movie. You know, it wasn't the typical kind of movie that you associate with the Oscars.
Right.
You know, I mean, this.
Well, they always have
horror,
that one
satire thriller.
Ever since the Dark Knight thing happened in 2008, where everybody on the planet wanted the Dark Knight to be nominated for Best Picture, and then instead the Reader took the 5th slot. You know, like there's been an outcry, and so they do those little things, I think, to like appease people. Like even I hate to say it because it was easily the best movie nominated that year, but Mad Max: Fury Road. That was another one where it just kind of seemed like they were throwing bones to people. You know, they never really had a shot at winning anything. But then that being said, too, Slumdog Millionaire, which did win Best Picture that year, was a big crowd pleaser even before it came out. You know, well, interesting. I didn't mean to say crowd pleaser just then. I just meant to say it was popular. But yeah, it was a crowd pleaser. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Jump to now, you've got movies like Spotlight and Birdman and Moonlight winning Best Picture, and these are I mean, most of them actually get categorized as like independent films. Like technically, Moonlight was an independent film, and like Birdman was like claimed to be like independent, you know, of the quote unquote studio system, you know. But I don't know, like a lot of it just seems kind of. I think people are actually waking up to the fact that the Oscars are just kind of self-congratulatory. Yeah. And I think that the Oscars seem a little bit like they're in damage control these days. Like they're trying to atone for their sins. Another big missed opportunity for them was when Social Network lost to King's Speech. Yeah. That was like that's when like they started getting called out for like being like, you know, old and behind the times, you know. Yeah. And then we had like the big controversy last year, the Oscars So White, you know, controversy, which they very brilliantly swept under the rug. There's no other way to put it. With that whole phony baloney. Oh, actually, Moonlight was the winner. I think they played us like a fiddle from minute 1.
Huh. I mean, please elaborate, unless you want to save that for a build-up to climactic reveal.
Whatever, let's do it. Yeah,
no, I find this interesting, because that was certainly a shocking moment.
Yeah, well, here's the moment where I ruin any chance I have of ever making it in this industry. When La La Land first started getting talked about, the trailers first started popping up, they were already selling us like it was your favorite movie. They straight up were like, this is the movie that will make you drunk on films again. This is the movie that will save
That's how
movies.
I felt about it.
Right.
I did love it.
Right. Well.
Like it or not. But hey.
At the same time, there was the big news coming out that Birth of a Nation at Sundance. Birth of a Nation was this huge hit at Sundance that sold for more than any other.
Oh no, ridiculous!
Any other movie that had been bought at Sundance, right?
Ever.
Right. They were really pumping it up. So right before the release of this movie of Birth of a Nation, it all comes out about the writer, director, star, these rape allegations and the woman who killed herself, after accusing him of rape and stuff like that. So all that bad PR, just buried the movie. It buried it. The movie didn't do well when it came out, and I saw the movie actually.
I didn't think it was that great.
I thought it was pretty bad. I thought it was all the controversy aside, it struck me as a vanity project, above all else.
Because he stars as himself and creates the whole opportunity for himself.
Not only that, but it's just all about giving him moments. No one else in the movie seemed to matter, and I didn't think it was very well handled.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. They took a very interesting, important moment in history, and they turned it into Braveheart. You know what I mean, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Without the skill of Braveheart. And so then all of a sudden, right before the Oscars, this little independent movie, Moonlight, starts to pop up. I remember seeing the trailer for Moonlight for the first time too at the Sundance, which is now the AMC Sunset 5. I remember seeing the trailer for Moonlight and going, "Oh, that looks interesting." Mm-hmm. And then it kind of just came and went. Nobody saw it, but the people who did see it, the critics, raved about it. La La Land comes out, and I was not a fan of Whiplash. I don't know if you liked Whiplash.
Yes.
I didn't think Whiplash was a bad movie. I just was kind of against it morally and my ideals about how art is an expression. And anyways, I hated Whiplash, but it was fine. It was a decent movie. I actually got into an early screening of La La Land because I'm a musical nut. I love musicals, and I got into an early screening. It's actually a funny, crazy story about how I got into it. Do we want to talk about that?
Yeah, what the hell?
Okay, so it was during they were doing a retrospect of Cassavetes films at the New Beverly for the month of October in 2016, and I was going to all of them because Cassavetes is my absolute hero. And it was the night they were going to be playing Minnie and Moskowitz at midnight. So that's all I had planned was going to Minnie and Moskowitz at midnight. My buddy Jeremy calls me up a few days beforehand and says, "Hey, I've got tickets to an early screening downtown of La La Land, and it's at 8 o'clock. You'd still be able to make it to the thing." And I said, "Great." And he was like, "You got to get there no later than 6, though, because the line's going to be super long." So I got my buddy Mike, and I got him a ticket to it, and we were going to meet up at 4 o'clock, and we were going to get downtown to get in line so we could get into La La Land. So he's going to pick me up at 4 o'clock. He's not there. At 4:30, he's not there. At 5 o'clock, I call him, and I'm like, "Hey, dude, where the hell are you?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I got tired while I was driving, and I took a nap." And I was like, "In your car?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Where are you?" And he was literally around the corner from my house, like a block away, asleep in his car. So I was pissed. I run downstairs. We get in the car. And we drive out there. As we're driving out there, he's like, "Hey, man, I forgot to tell you, I didn't register my ticket, so I don't have a ticket." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "So I'll just drop you off. It'll be cool. And I'll pick you up afterward, and we'll go to the Cassavetes movie." I was like, "Man, fuck you, Mike." So he drops me off downtown. I go to get in line, and they're like, "Oh, you need to go register first." And I'm like, "Okay, where do I register?" They're like, "You have to go down to this hotel 2 blocks away and register." I'm like, "Fine." So I go down there. I give them my ticket, and they're like, "All right, cool." And I'm like, "Thanks." So I go back to that other place, and they're like, "Hey, where's your wristband?" It's like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "You need to get a wristband when you register." I was like, "Why didn't they tell me that?" So I had to go all the way back. I get the wristband, right? I come back. My friend Jeremy's at the very front of the line because he's been there since like 3 o'clock. I'm like, "Hey, let me cut in line with you." He's like, "No, I can't do that." I was like, "What, man? Hell with you." So I go to the end of the block where the line is all the way at the end of the block, and I'm standing in line for about 10 minutes. It's about 6:30 at this point. And then this guy walks by and, working for the event. He's like, "Everybody hold up your wristbands." And so we all hold up our wrists. And he's like, "Your wristband is the wrong color." I was like, "What?" And he goes, "You have to go to the back of the regular line." And I look around the corner, and the regular line literally goes down 3 blocks. I'm like, "Man, son of a bitch." Well, whatever. So I walk down the 3 blocks. When I get to that last block, I turn the corner. It goes down another block, right? And I'm like, "All right, well, we'll see." already pretty sure I'm not going to get in. I get in the back of the line. I text Jeremy. I'm like, hey, I'm really far back. I don't think I'm getting in. And he sends me a picture of his buddy Jack, and he's like, hey, my buddy Jack is in line. Find him. You can cut with him. I said, okay. So I find Jack, and he's only about 50 people ahead of me. But I'm talking with Jack, nice enough guy. He sees my Lady Gaga tattoo, my art pop tattoo on my arm, and he just starts like going off on how awful Lady Gaga is, how much he hates her, how stupid she is, and how like he was mad because she got cast in A Star Is Born, and that's his favorite musical, you know. And he was so excited for La La Land and couldn't wait, you know. And finally, we're moving up in the line, and I'm not even kidding. They stop right at us and say, "No more people beyond this point." And I'm like, whatever, I don't care. So I'm walking away, and Jack's like, No, damn it, no. And he's like, we're getting in here. And so he grabs my hand, and he we sneak under some scaffolding that's right at the front of the line, you know, right before the theater. And we get in line, and we're standing there, and the security guard, he sees Jack, and he goes, what did I say? And he like storms over, and he grabs Jack by the collar. He's like, what did I tell you? I told you no. And Jack's like, I have a right to be in this line. And he pulls Jack out of the line. Doesn't touch me.
Wow.
So I'm like, all right. So I just stay in line. And then a bunch of people saw that I had done this, so they sneak in behind me. So there's like 15 people behind me. We get to the very, very front, and the guy's like, last four, you, and he points to me, and you. That's it. No one else. Oh. So I'm literally the last person they let in, right?
Wow.
I walk into the movie, and I go to the general seating on the ground level, and there's no fucking seats. So then I'm like, oh, hell, let's see if I can get into the private boxes. So I go upstairs to the private box, and I walk right in, and right in the front row center of the balcony section, there's one seat at the exact middle. And I sat down. Nice. Nobody said shit. Wow. And as soon as I sat down, the second I sat down, the movie started.
And what theater was it again? With the
I forget the name. It's just like one of those like hotel, like it's a theater downtown. It's like
Theater at Ace Hotel. Probably.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Look
So I sit down, and it starts. And after the first song, I was already like, oh, well, this is a giant piece of shit. I was like, the song is terrible.
No.
There's no motivation behind the expression. Like the song is like this upbeat song about like, you know, I left her at a Greyhound station. It's this upbeat, fun song about how great Los Angeles is. Yeah. But they're talking about sad things with no good choreography. They can't sing. It's mixed to where you can't understand what they're saying. The color grading on the movie is disgustingly awful. And he's doing this bullshit gimmick where he makes it look like one shot when really it's 4 shots composited together.
Was it?
Yeah, and worse than that, there's nothing to show off. The reason why old school Hollywood films would do all their big musical numbers in one shot was to show off a skill, whether it was the arrangement of the song, the singing, or the dancing. That's why they would do a single shot. This had none of those to show off, but was still just doing a single shot, not even a real single shot. It's all phony and bullshit from minute one. And I was like, oh, I already can tell I'm not going to make it through this movie. And when it got to the middle of the movie, spoilers, where they kiss after the dance at the observatory.
Yes.
I was like, I'm done. So I leave, and as I'm leaving, I'm retrieving my cell phone because you weren't allowed to take your cell phone. And like the people who were working there, like, you didn't like it? I'm like, no. And I started going off on it. And they just thought it was hilarious. They got like my contact info because they wanted to know more about me because I was so belligerent. So I go outside and I call up Mike and I'm like, hey, come pick me up. Let's go to the movie. And he's like, oh, I'm in North Hollywood. I was like, son of a bitch, Mike. So I just ordered an Uber, and the guy picks me up, and he turns out to be a pop songwriter who loves Lady Gaga. I was like, this is excellent. So we have this fun little conversation about Lady Gaga. And then I get dropped off, and I go see Minnie and Moskowitz, which was the only Cassavetes movie at that point I hadn't seen. Halfway through the Cassavetes movie, Jenna Rollins' character goes home, and she goes to this apartment, and I was shocked to see it was the exact same apartment that I filmed my first Hollywood movie in. So I was like, oh, my God, me and Cassavetes have shot in the same apartment. Awesome. And then 2 minutes later, he walks into the scene as a surprise, as a surprise cameo. He comes into the scene, Cassavetes, yeah. And so I'm like, oh my God, I acted in the same room as Cassavetes.
Wow.
The movie gets out. I walk outside. There's a pretty girl standing on the corner waiting for her cab. I start talking to her because I was amazed that a pretty girl was just sitting there after a Cassavetes movie by herself at midnight. And we hit it off. We ended up going on a date a couple days later. Wow. And it was very funny. The next morning, Jeremy calls me. He's like, what'd you think? And I was like, oh, I left early. He goes, tell me you're kidding. And I said, no, why? And he goes, because Lady Gaga did a surprise performance afterward. I'm like, yeah, right. And I look it up, and sure enough.
What the hell was she doing?
She just came out and played a couple songs on the piano.
What?
Yeah, and I missed it.
She had nothing to do with the damn movie.
Well, she's better than anything in that movie, so moving on. So anyway, yeah, it's quite a story.
Yeah.
Oh, Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention this was the weekend. So I guess it was actually early November because it was the weekend. It was 2 days after Trump had won the presidency.
Uh-huh.